Hi everyone, Urashi here. I know it's been a few days since I posted my first video, but I've been working on the sound quality, so it should be better now. In this video, I want to talk a bit about my journey in Path of Exile so far. I want to go over the builds that I played in the previous leagues, and what I currently play in the Necropolis League. I hope that you will enjoy the video, so let's get to it. And just a quick disclaimer before we start the video. Path of Exile is a game that has many intense animations, flashing lights, monsters, a screen worth of monsters dying at once and exploding. So watch at your own risk if you have photosensitivity or epilepsy. Also, some of the builds that you see in this video may not be viable in the current league, so make your own research before playing them. As I mentioned in my previous video, I have started playing in the Crucible League, and for those of you that have not played it, I want to talk a bit about it. Since I don't have any footage, this is the official trailer from the Path of Exile YouTube channel. So in the Crucible League, you will channel these altars that you see on the screen, and the more you channel them, the more difficult monsters will spawn. And after you defeat these monsters, you would be able to add a passive tree to your weapons. Whether they are unique or rare, it wouldn't matter. And this in turn gave birth to many broken builds, such as exploding totems. I have not played it myself. I started with something different. And as you can see, they have introduced many different changes into the end game. But since I was a new player, I don't care about them that much since I didn't know the previous versions of these systems or skills. So before dragging this, let's start talking about the builds that I actually played in the Crucible. The first build that I started playing in this league was Gaza TV's Skeleton Mages. To this day, I have pretty much no idea of how this build works, since I had help from a friend who got to either crafted the items for me or bought them for me, since we were playing in the softcore trade league. The only thing I know about how this build works is you have some skeletons and you would make these skeletons ranged with this jewel, Dead Reckoning. If you have at least 40 intelligence era in the radius of this jewel, it will turn them into skeleton mages. And then you would make them aggressive by using the predator support. So this build is a well-rounded build. Its defenses were good as far as I can remember, and it's a classic minion build setup that you have your animate guardian, you have your golem and your zombies, and I believe this had spectres as well, but I haven't played it ever since it got to the standard, so I don't know, I might have to raise them again. So when I first started this league, it took me about 4 days to finish the campaign, because as a new player, you tend to overkill when you go through the campaign. You try to explore everything, but that was fun, even though it took a long time to finish the campaign. I was around 80 or 81 when I finished it. So that was a bit of a long stretch. And after I was done with the campaign, when I got to the maps, I was blown away, because there have been so many mechanics in the game. And the ones that I enjoyed doing were Blight and Ritual. And since this was a minion build, Blight was somewhat easy. But in Ritual, since I would summon these skeletons, there were a lot of them, and when you use the wall summon skeletons, you would summon about 40 of them, if I remember right. Yeah, 44 skeletons on your screen as well as your other minions and the enemies, my maps would break. I had so much visual glitches that I had to stop playing this build, and or I had to stop doing the ritual. But one of the other reasons why I stopped playing this build was because I didn't know how to scale the damage, because I didn't have that much knowledge, and I always wanted to play Arc. And when I mentioned in my previous video that I couldn't finish the campaign in 2013, I played Arc during that time. And I had this notion in my mind that I will be able to freeze the enemies and then I can shatter them with lightning. So now I know, of course, it doesn't work like that. There's a shatter mechanic in the game, obviously, but you don't have to use a lightning skill to shatter the frozen enemies. So that is why I stopped playing this build, but I didn't sell any of its gear. And I found a build on YouTube, and I don't want to call it bait, but it was pretty much something like that. And I'll get to that in a minute. So the second build that I ever played was Arc, and as I said, I found it on YouTube. But this build was quite bad. I mean, scaling Arc in Crucible was pretty hard on its own, since it was nerfed quite a lot. Of course, you could still map with it, but in terms of doing bosses, it somewhat lacked damage. But even if you got damage, as this build did, this was a generic power charge stacking build. But as you know, when you stack all those power charges, you don't have much room for defenses. And the tree is different because I then stopped playing that one because I kept dying a lot. Its only defensive layers were Mind Over Matter and Agnostic. I don't even remember where that was. Yeah, it's here. So it didn't have any defensive layers, no evasion, no armor, and not even capped spell suppression. So it felt awful after some time. And then I switched to Enki's Arc Witch, but I tried it on a Templar version, so that's why the tree is different. And I even talked to Enki about this as well. I asked him if I could play it on the Hierophant Ascendancy, and he said that he was also himself looking into it. But then, you know, he stopped doing content for Path of Exile a few months back. He made his decision, and I believe he's a VTuber now. But there's nothing wrong with his build. I know that he helped many people ease into the game, and that was the same for me because his build was well-rounded. It had a lot of defenses, and also even though it lacked somewhat of damage for the end game, he had many crafting tutorials in his build, so I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot by playing his version of Arc. So the last build that I played on Crucible was a Frostblades Trickster, and I had a blast with this build. And I followed Zish on YouTube. I followed his build guide while making this character, and he has extensive knowledge on Frostblades. So if you want to play this build, I'm sure he has an updated version for the 3.24 Necropolis. So you can check out his channel. And I learned a lot while playing this build, especially in terms of crafting. I crafted all of its gear myself. Obviously, most of the crafts aren't that hard, but still, Zish has extensive videos on crafting each piece of gear, so you can check him out if you want. So basically the way this build works is you use Frostblades, and this converts 60% of your physical damage into cold. I don't know anything about its current version. It might have changed, it might have been nerfed. As I said in the beginning of the video, you need to check it out yourself. But when I played it, it would convert 60% of your physical damage into cold, and you would get another further 40% from here. So your whole physical damage will be converted to cold. So as you know, from if you have played something like physical to cold conversion tornado shots, this makes it so that you can scale your damage easier. You can get physical damage, you can get cold damage or elemental damage in general, and also you can use a Watcher's Eye to further scale your damage, and so on. And this was a really fun build. It's exceptionally fast in maps, and you can even take it to Ubers, but I couldn't do it because Ubers have a high freeze threshold, so you need a lot of damage to go over that threshold. And in this build, when you can't go over that threshold, your Trinity doesn't proc, unfortunately, because it depends on proccing Heat Shiver. And the way Heat Shiver used to work, I believe this was nerfed. 100% of your cold damage, you would gain it as extra fire. And mind this here, because it's not converted. You deal 100% of cold damage, and then you deal that same damage as extra fire damage. So this was quite broken, and I believe this was nerfed to about 30% of cold damage later on. But it was really fun. So you will freeze the enemies, Heat Shiver will proc, and then it will proc your Trinity, and you will do a lot of damage. And basically this skill, usually Frostblades, hits in a cone in front of you, like this. But when you get the implicit from your glows, non-wall strike skills target 2 additional nearby enemies, and you also get pierce, so you pretty much hit the whole screen and then freeze everything on your path. So it's really fun. Let me just show you. And I used this in my previous video as well, to just fill in the gaps as I was talking. And you also use totems. Unfortunately, it's how the melee works in this game. And I'm not gonna do many of the mechanics. I'm just, as you can see, breezing through the map. So this was really fun to play overall. I wish I could have done Ubers this league, but I couldn't. But I min-maxed this as best as I could by following the guide, as I said. And yeah, I highly recommend playing this build if you find it fun. Oh, so this is in standard, so that's why it updates all the maps. And yeah, I did pretty much everything I wanted this league, aside from Ubers. As I said, I min-maxed this as best as I could. I got my Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Jewel, and I learned a lot about the mechanics on the tree. Because yeah, there's something like this impossible escape that you can allocate passive points without them being connected to your tree. And this one says point blank, so you can get these. So there are many things like this that I learned over time, and I'm still continuing to learn because this is my 4th league, and we'll get there, I hope, in time. So now let's get to the next league, the Trial of the Ancestors. So, the Trial of the Ancestors introduced a new league mechanic that were similar to teamfight tactics from League of Legends or auto chess from Dota. But the only difference was you could participate in these battles yourself alongside of your minions. I found it fun. I found it refreshing compared to the existing league mechanics. And I try to learn something new every single league. And this league I chose Harvest as a mechanic to learn and to interact with. And I'm not really proud, but I made a cheese build for Tota because the mechanic itself was really overtuned. Even the tankiest builds would get one shot as you progress through the rankings. So people had different opinions about the league. Some loved it, some hated it. But the tattoos were really good that were introduced with the system. They will change the way your passive tree behaved, and also some new systems were introduced, such as the new Atlas Keystones, the Oppenheimer expedition bomb that you could use. And they also reintroduced Sanctum into the league, so let's check out the builds that I played. I started this league with Zizzeran's Explosive Arrow Champion, and it was one of my best league starts ever because I found Forbidden Flesh jewel from the Quest Eater, and I didn't even know that it could drop that, but I sold it for about 40 divines or so in my first week. So that was really good, and I found the Divine Altar later on in the second week, I guess, and I got about 16 divines from that. So it was certainly one of the better league starts that I had in the game, and considering this was my second league, I was really rich. You know, you don't get that much currency when you first start playing the game. And the Explosive Arrow Champion is a really solid build. Of course, it's a damage over time, so the damage is a bit delayed, and especially when you put down your totems, they shoot the explosive arrows, and then the arrows explode and you will deal dot damage. So it's a bit delayed, but it was really fun. And as I said, I tried to learn a new mechanic every single league. I did Harvest this league, so it was really good in Harvest as well. And I farmed a lot of Harvest, but then I wanted to interact with the league mechanic, and I switched my Explosive Arrow to an Elementalist. Since I'm playing Softcore Trade League, it doesn't matter that much if I die. Then I made this cheese build for Trial of the Ancestors. As I said, am I proud of it? No, but it did the job. It did the job, and the only thing that would kill me in the mechanic were degens. As you can see here, that I have capped attack block and spell block. So the only thing would kill me were either degens from that cold monster, I don't remember her name, or the chaos degens. Other than that, it was good. And this league was also a channeling mechanic overall. You will channel the totems of your enemies, and they will die in the process, and when you destroyed all of their totems, you will win the round and get your prize. And the prices for the league mechanic were really good. That's why I created this cheese build. And this was the first league that I got a Mage Blood. As I said, I had a lot of currency in the beginning, and I've kept farming currency with this character. But I learned another valuable lesson in this league because I gambled 4 apothecary cards and all of them poofed. So the thing I learned is never gamble your cards before actually getting a Mage Blood. Then I had to farm all over again and got a Mage Blood finally. And since, as I mentioned, bow builds were really strong this league due to the tattoos, I decided to try a tornado shot build, but I believe that was a mistake. So we'll get to that. So the second build that I tried this league was physical to cold conversion tornado shot, and playing tornado shot on its own is fine, but when you play physical to cold it gets really expensive, and I couldn't oversee that, or I thought that I could farm enough currency to build a really solid character, but I couldn't do it. As you can see, my bow isn't that good. I crafted this myself as well, but it's not synthesized, it's not mirror tier, and this I built this for mapping, but as well as bossing as well. I wanted to take down Ubers with this one, but it turns out you really need a lot of currency and really good gear to take down Ubers with tornado shot, because you're kind of squishy, so you need a lot of damage, and I couldn't do it again. And the last build that I played, and as you can see, this one doesn't have any Mage Blood on it, even though it has the flasks. I switched my Calandra's Touch and my Mage Blood to my Witch, the one that I was using for Explosive Arrow, and I turned it into an SRS build, a Poison SRS, because I wanted to try Sanctums, since I didn't play in the Sanctum League. So I'm just gonna show it to you as well. Now, I had an MTX on this, but I guess I removed it because there was a memory leak on the Ebony MTX that you shoot black arrows. So we'll just get to the SRS. So don't play physical to cold conversion tornado shot if you don't have the resources for it. And the last build that I played in Trial of the Ancestors was a Poison SRS build. I made this quickly after watching Stillmage's video on how he made 50 divines in a day, and I never played SRS before, but it's a medium build nonetheless. You summon your Raging Spirits, they just find the enemy, and this is a poison variant of SRS, and I believe it is still viable. It's nerfed in Necropolis a bit, the gem itself, but it should be still viable. There are many builds that people play, such as the Popcorn SRS, or even the Poison should be still viable, but you need to check them. And I did Sanctums mainly with this character, and since I had a Mage Blood, I had a Calandra's Touch, I didn't really care about most of the gear. You know, I don't even have a shield here. I just slapped in these two and played it like that. So this was the end of the Toda for me. I played it for about 2.5 months or 3 months, and I'm not that hardcore of a player. You know, I couldn't finish building the tornado shot, so I'm not that efficient in making currency, but I'm learning something new every single league, and it's still fun for me. As I said, I did Harvest and Sanctum in this one, and now we'll get to the Affliction, one of the leagues that people really loved. So 3.23 Affliction. I didn't really interact with the league mechanic this league that much, because it included juicing your maps, you know, increasing their modifiers and getting better loot, but in turn it will cause a lot of decrease in FPS, and my system isn't that strong, so I didn't really interact that much. Basically, the way it worked, you would collect these wisps, blue, yellow, and purple, and when you collected something between 6 to 10k, you would really start getting good loot. But what I loved about this league was that which was taken jewel that dropped from the King of the Mists, boss that was introduced in this mechanic. And also charms were really good, that you could socket into your Wildwood Ascendancy. You know, you have three different trees that you could choose. Yeah, these ones. And you could socket the charms in the Primalist Ascendancy. And charms really changed a lot for me in the game. And I tried many different builds, so let's get to it. This league I started with Detonate Death, because people have been saying that it is the strongest skill in the game, since it scales off the health pool of the enemies that you detonate. So as you move through the maps, as the tier increases, the level of the monsters increases as well. So when you detonate them, you get a lot of damage, pretty much for free. I tried it, but I can't say that I liked it that much. It's a 2-button build, yes, but it also felt clunky. Maybe I did something wrong, I don't know. I died a lot, I don't know how, really, because players like Ben clear the whole gauntlet with this character. But of course, probably I did something wrong. I played an Ignite version, but after a while I got tired of it. I got tired of dying, and I got tired of the clunkiness. Then I switched to something else, and as you can see, this is the Wildwood backpack that I was talking about. And I don't know if they kept the ascendancies here. Let me just check. No, they removed them because the charms were removed. But that which was taken was quite fun to use. So let's get to another build. The league started with this, but then I stopped playing it in about first week of the league, and I switched to something else. And I must say, before switching to that build, that I have never played something as hideous and disgusting as that build. So we'll see in a minute. So the next build I played was Boneshatter. And Boneshatter is a really weird build. You know, in order to deal damage, all the planets and stars need to align. You need to have your totems up, you need to be hitting the enemy, you need to be leeching from the enemy, so when you encounter a monster that you can't leech from, you die, basically. And the socket pressure of this build is off the roof. It's insane. It's really insane. No, I don't even have a 6-link here, but I crafted this axe God knows how many times. And this was the league that I got into Betrayal mechanic. I knew a bit about it, but I didn't really understand how the different safe houses work, so I learned. And then I also did Harvest as well, but I don't know how people play this. Yeah, it's used in races. I mean, Karn plays it, and I followed Karn's guide, and I have huge respect for him for playing this build. And I follow this Tainted Pact version. So the way basically this works, you hit the enemy, you poison them, and when they are poisoned, that poison is reflected onto you. And it's not with this, but something in the tree. And this causes you to heal as you take chaos damage over time. And since poison is chaos damage over time, you constantly heal yourself. So it's a really good defensive mechanic. You can face tank pretty much everything, but for the life of me I couldn't get poison chance on this axe, and I tried many times. I mean, I did craft this for about 10 times or something like that, then I got really sick of it and I said it is what it is. And when you don't have around 50% poison chance, this build might sometimes die. And I don't think it's viable in the current patch. I mean, even Karn, I believe, doesn't play it. But I'm sure some people might. So if you want to play this, you might try and find a build, or you might try it yourself. But I highly not recommend it because melee isn't really in a great spot. As I said, you are dependent on these totems. That was the case in Frostblades as well, but at least that build doesn't rely on this many sockets, you know, to optimize everything. So that was a better experience for me, but on the other hand, this one, not so much. And also Affliction introduced transfigured gems. As you can see here, this is a Boneshatter of complex trauma. The only difference is this stops stacking after 20 or something, but it gives more damage per stack of trauma, so that's really good. So you deal less damage to yourself while dealing pretty much the same damage with the normal Boneshatter. And transfigured gems are a really good addition into the game. I love them, but I wish they just kept this. You know, look how beautiful this is, and I can't put anything in there. As soon as I remove this, I guess this will go away, so I won't do that. Like a keepsake. And this league I decided to not sell all the gear of my characters that I played, because that's what I usually did in the previous leagues. When I stopped playing a build, I will sell all of its gear and work towards a new one. But this league I decided to keep it. You know, maybe I will play it later on, or just for reminiscence, you know. So let's get to the last build that I played this league. And the last one that I played was Penance Path of Dissipation. So this build was quite broken. And you might say that I only play meta builds, and yes, that's what I do, because I'm new in the game. This is only my 4th league. Of course, for some people I played more than most, but still I'm quite fairly new. So I try meta builds and try to learn a new thing from each of them, or even just try it out, you know, be strong or something like that. But I would love to make my own build one day, but it's too complex, really. But I'm getting there. I'm learning bit by bit. So I'm sure most of you know this build. This is Penance Path of Dissipation. You put your brand down and it starts ramping up, and once it reaches I believe it was 20 levels, it has energy levels, and once it reaches 20 it starts discharging, and it deals a lot of damage. You know, the numbers on this were really high last league. It was quite broken, so you could just build it however you wanted. I followed Manni's build at first, but then I dried from it, and I tried something with life regen, you know, high life regen that could tank most things. And then I tinkered a bit with melding of the flesh, and I don't know if I still have it. You know, I never capped my resist to 90%, so I wanted to try that with Mage Blood and with taking less damage, but of course these were changed in the Necropolis, so you can't see it right now. But I really like this. I converted 100% of physical damage into elemental, you know, fire, cold, As you can see, this has an implicit taken as cold, and also the shield itself converts some other forms of elemental damage into fire and some physical damage into fire as well. And we have a lightning coil. This also converts 50% of physical damage into lightning. And I used charms, 3 charms that had max fire res on them, but they were removed, as you can see. This was a crit based build, so it dealt a lot of damage overall. This was really fun. I again farmed the Mage Blood, but these were quite cheap last league, together with Headhunter. And I bought a Headhunter, but I didn't use it. And this was the first league I completed all the challenges. I took down all the Ubers, I did all the challenges, and I had tons of fun. I was really happy with this league. It was the first time that I achieved everything I wanted in the game. But of course, this was a broken build, but still, it was fun. And again, I did some sanctums. I didn't map this much with this character because its clear is not good without a mirror tier wand. And yes, I did not drop a mirror in the League of Mirrors, but I didn't do much mapping. I focused on bosses because everything that dropped outside of maps were expensive as well, so bossing was really profitable as well. I did a lot of Uber Shapers and some Uber Elders and a Maven here and there, but Uber Shaper was really good profit. Even without IDing Sublime Visions, they sold for a really good amount. And yes, that's it from this league. And now we'll take a look at the current league, Necropolis. So before we move on to the Necropolis league, I want to talk a bit about the Gauntlet that happened towards the end of the Affliction league. And I had a lot of fun in the Gauntlet. I mean, I haven't had this much fun in this game before, because in Softcore League you farm currency by playing the mechanic of your own choice. You don't have to interact with many of the other mechanics, and after you farm enough currency, you either buy crafting materials and craft your items yourself, or you just buy them from the trade site. But in the Gauntlet you play in an SSF environment, solo self-bound environment, and it is also hardcore. So idea that you can die at any time is kind of thrilling. But I don't think I will ever play hardcore on regular leagues because my internet connection sometimes is not that good, and also there are some stupid mods in this game, let's be honest, such as the DD. Of course, they improved its visibility in the Necropolis. They added some new sound changes to it as well. You can hear the enemies igniting before they explode. But still, I don't think I will play hardcore, but I might play SSF in the future, or maybe even in this league, because it was really fun to interact with the game as a whole, instead of just farming currency and buying the items yourself. But we'll see about that. So I played 3 different characters in the Gauntlet. I started with a Pathfinder, Toxic Rain Pathfinder, and I never played Pathfinder before. So I thought that this will be a good time to try it, but that really doesn't how it's work in the Gauntlet. It doesn't really work that way. You need to play something that you are familiar with. So I died quite quickly in Act 4 to Piety. And the second one that I made was a Chieftain. I wanted to try RF as well, and I died in Act 5. So even finishing the campaign was a huge core in itself, you know. It's a huge chore, really. And finally, I had the most success with this Guardian SRS. You know, it was quite broken last league, and I didn't play it in the league, so I thought that yeah, I could try this. And I initially created this character for muling Gams for Chieftain, but I gave it my last shot at it, and it was quite good. I finished the campaign, I made it to maps, I finished 3 labs, not the last one, but I enjoyed it. And I died at level 87, but it was okay. In the next Gauntlet, I'm also thinking of playing if I have the time, and I want to at least clear the base content. You know, not Ubers maybe, but I want to clear at least the pinnacle bosses. So, now let's move on to the Affliction, Necropolis. In the 3.24 Necropolis League, GGG introduced a crafting league mechanic where you interact with corpses, where you bring them to this NPC, Arimor, I believe his name is. He's an undertaker. You bring the corpses to him, and then you bury the corpses in the graves, and you craft. And this is the first league that I've seen that the league mechanic is mandatory, both in campaign and in maps. So I don't really know how I feel about that. It's not really good, I believe, because it makes the maps too hard at some point with all these modifiers added to the mobs, and the rewards aren't really there. But GGG released a new patch today as of the recording of this video, and they fixed some of the systems, some of the crafting and corpses as well. You can check that out, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll make a video about that. But they are working quite fast, so I'm impressed with that, because usually they don't either fix a leak or they do it in a month in. So it's really good that they play their own game and know their shortcomings. And other than the league mechanic, this is a brilliant time to play Path of Exile, because they introduce so many quality of life changes, from the additional Atlas skill trees to the whole rework of Scarabs and the addition of tier 70 maps. So we'll talk a bit more about that. So in the Necropolis League, I started with Lightning Arrow Deadeye, and I followed various guides. I've taken something from most of them. I followed Havoc, and I've taken a bit of look at Tuna's guide, obviously. Crouching Tuna has an extensive guide on this, and also Havoc. He pretty much finishes the campaign in under 3 hours with this build. But I wasn't really that successful with it, and I don't like starting this character. Yeah, I know it's popular, I know most of you like this build, but it's really squishy. I die really a lot, and I barely finished my Atlas, especially with the league mechanic being mandatory. Let's see. Yeah, I'm somewhat finished with the Atlas, at least I finished the maps. And addition of this Atlas skill tree is amazing this league, as I just mentioned while watching the league trailer. They changed many endgame systems, and they introduced quality of life such as this one, and they removed sextants, which I really didn't like. And they reworked the whole Scarab system. And my starting tree was something like this. I went with Legion, and I never did Legion before. And I don't know how you make money with Legion. I still don't know. And dying a lot due to map modifiers and not really knowing the character did not really help at all. But as I said, I'm not that hardcore in this game. I usually take my time, and in this tree I went with Legion and Betrayal, and then once I realized that I didn't make enough money to buy crafting materials, I switched to an essence tree with Scarab's edit. Yeah, I know it's not the most optimal, but it's still good. And I'm farming Scarabs and essences right now in order to craft better gear or get some currency while selling them. So this is the bow that I have right now. It's not really good. It doesn't have attack speed, and DPS isn't that high. But since they changed the Necropolis system, right now they made it a bit better. I believe I can craft a better bow with the league mechanic, but we'll see. So overall, this league mechanic isn't the greatest, but the changes made to the game are just really good, in my opinion. It's really much more enjoyable, and I really like it, but I think I won't min-max this character. I will just farm a bit more currency and reroll into something else, and I don't know what I will play. I might take a look at the Archmage builds. You know, they are quite strong now since the changes made into the Archmage. Or I might try something like an armor stacker, but we'll see. We'll see. Once I get enough currency, I'm gonna make my decision. So, thank you for watching this video. I talked a bit about my journey in Path of Exile, and as you can see, I'm not that knowledgeable or experienced in the game. I'm learning something new every single league, from crafting to different mechanics, but I'm still not that great. I mean, I finished the campaign in about 6.5 hours at the start of the league, so, and that is one of my best times in the campaign. But I'm learning and I'm enjoying the game, and the reason why I started this channel is to share it with you, really, and enjoy and learn the game together. And someone wants to buy something, so that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, it will really help me if you subscribe and like the video. And I also stream on Twitch if you want to come and watch it. The last time I couldn't add the link to the description because apparently it was an advanced feature of YouTube, but now I think I sorted it out, so I will add the link below, and I'll see you on the next video or on the stream. Thank you for watching it.